Hello everyone and welcome back to the Power BI series. In today's video, we are going to explore one of the most important topics in Power BI, which is DAX, which stands for Data Analysis Expressions. By the end of this video, you will clearly understand when to use measures, when to use calculated columns, and how can you create the calculated tables. So let's jump right in. So let us start by importing the data first. So I have kept the data in the Excel workbook. So I will be clicking on that connector. This is the workbook from which I am going to get the data. So I have clicked on the open. Now it will show you up the navigator pane from which you can see all the sheets that are present in the selected workbook. So this workbook is only having the single sheet called as orders. If you click on that, on the right side, you will be able to see its preview. So this particular table or this particular sheet is having this type of data. And if you click on this checkbox, you will be able to see these two buttons are getting enabled. So let me click on the transform data, which will redirect the same data to a new window called Power Query Editor, where I can clean my data, where I can transform my data if required. So I have clicked on the transform data option. Now I have redirected to Power Query Editor. So this is how the Power Query interface looks like. Now this is the single table or the single query present in your Power Query editor, and because of this option, column quality and the column distribution, which I have checked, because of which you are able to see the percentage of the valid error empty and the number of distinct and the unique values in the selected columns. So you can see how many distinct and unique values are there for each and every individual columns. Now let's try to see if there is any requirement to clean this type of data that we have already imported. So the row ID column is all having all the 100% valid records. Data type is also correct. The order ID is having the textual type of data. So there is also all valid records. Order date, the data type is a date. So that is also valid. Ship date column also the same. Ship mode is a textual type of data. There are all valid records only. Customer ID is also valid record and the data type is also correct. Same for the customer name as well. Then there comes the segment. So the segment is data types is a text and all records are valid only. Country column or the region column, the data type of that is the textual data and it is also having all the valid records. The same for the city column, the state column, data type is same, that is a textual type, and no error or the empty records are found in these columns. Postal code is the next column which is having the data type as an integer, or you can say the whole number. So it is also having all the valid records. Then there comes the region. So its data type is a textual and all records are valid. Then there comes the product ID, which is also having all the valid records and its data type is a text. Then there comes the category column, subcategory column, and the product name. So all these three columns also having the valid records only, and the data type is also correct. And at the end we are having the sales quantity, discount, and the profit for the given order which is placed by the given customer, right? So over here, as I can see, all records are valid only. There is no data cleaning required for this particular data set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load this particular data to my Power BI desktop, and then we'll try to see how can you create the measures, calculated columns, and the tables. Okay, so let me click on this close and apply, which will load this particular table into your Power BI desktop. So as you can see on the right side in the data pane, you will be able to see this orders sheet, that is the name of the table which we have imported, and these are the different columns that are present in that table, right? So over here you are not able to see the actual data. So for that you will have to switch your view to the table view, where you will be able to see the data that is present in that table. Okay. If you go to the model view, you can build the data model here. Now let's start by measures. Let's start by creating certain measures. So measures are nothing but these are just the dynamic calculations that will depend on the filters that you have applied on your report. Okay. And the best practice would be to keep all your measures into a separate table so that you can better organize your data model. So how can you create a key measures table to store all the type of measures that you are going to create? So you can click on this enter data option which is present in the home tab. So just click on that. Then you have to just give the name of the table. I'm writing the name to the table as a key measures, and I'm not doing anything over here. Just click on the load, which will load this table called key measures in the Power BI desktop only, and that table will be specifically there for storing all the measures that I'm going to create. Okay, so the table got created. If you can see, this is a table which is having only a single column, which we are going to later delete on also. So first, let us start by creating certain measures. So if you can see, this is the orders table. It is having all the orders related data of a particular store. And what I want to do is I want to create a one measure which will give me the total value of the cells. Okay, how much cells are getting driven by this particular data that is present in here. So what I can do is I can click on this particular table. How can you create measure? Is there are n number of ways. The first way is to just click on the table. Then table tools tab will be getting opened. Here you can click on the new measure option. Otherwise you can click on this more options and there is option to create a new measure. So you can use any option. Otherwise you can go to the modeling tab as well and where you will be able to get this option called new measure. So I'm going to click on that, and the syntax for creating a measure is first you have to give the name of the measure followed by equal to sign and followed by the DAX expression. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the name to the measure as a total cells, and this particular total cells will be computed by adding all the cells values that are present in this orders table, right? So I'm going to use the sum aggregation function which is going to add up all the values in the column that I'm going to specify in the brackets of the sum function. Okay, so what is the column on which I want to compute the sum operation? I want to compute the operation on the cells column. So the syntax that you guys have to follow is you have to first mention the function name. In bracket, you have to pass the argument. So the column name is argument for the sum function. So you have to write the name of the function brackets and then you have to pass the column name. So how you have to write the column name is you first have to mention the name of the table and then in brackets there will be the column name. So I have written SA and it has given me the suggestion that there is one column called as S cells in my orders table. So it is better way to choose that by clicking on the tab key on your laptop and just close the bracket for the sum function. And now I'm going to click on this commit option which is going to create this measure, and if you see in the key measures table this measure got created. Now I don't want to get this particular column, so I'm going to delete it. So you just have to click on that more options and delete it from the model. Now you are having this particular measure created called total cells. So if I drag this particular measure and drop it on my canvas, you will be able to see the total cells that are getting generated, okay, from the data that I'm having with me. So let's say I also want to compute what is the total profit. So what I can do again, I can go to the key measures, I can click on that. Let's click on the new measure option. Then I will write the name of the measure. The name of the measure is a total profit. Then I'm going to use the sum function again because I want to compute the total profit that is getting generated. So right now I will be using the profit column from my orders table and I will close the bracket for the sum function and then I will hit on the enter key. You either press enter key or you can click on this commit button. Okay. Now the measure got created called total profit. Now I'm going to drag it on my report and you will be able to see the total profit getting computed. If you want to find out the total quantity or if you want to find out the average discount, that is also very easy. So let us start by creating those measures. So I'm going to compute the total quantity. So the name of the measure will be total quantity, and that you can compute by using the sum aggregation function, which is going to take the quantity column from my orders table and which will create this total quantity measure. So I can drop it on my canvas. So this is the total quantity. After that I'm going to find out the average discount. So how can you compute average discount is you just have to click on the key measures table, click on this option called new measures, then give the name of the measure. So I'm going to write it as a avg discount. And how can you compute the average discount is using average function. So when you write AV, then you will be able to get all the suggestions or the name of the functions that are starting with the AV. So you just have to select proper function using the arrow keys from your laptop and then you can press on the tab key to select that particular function. You don't have to memorize any syntax because this is the intelligence tool which will give you the intelligence at every step. It is also tell you that what is this function is going to do and what argument you need to pass to this function. So the average function is expecting the column name. So let me give the discount column from my orders table to it, which will compute the average discount. So the measure got created. Let me try to drag it on on the canvas. So this is what the average discount. You can also convert it to percentage. So if I click on that, and if you try to click on this, so it will convert it into the percentage. So that is the 15.62% of average discount we are applying on the orders that are getting placed by the customers. Okay, so that is the high level insight that I'm getting from this measures that I've created. So how these calculations are dynamic. So what if I pass any categorical data, let's say category. So if I drag this particular value on my canvas, you will be able to see this table getting created. Let me try to convert it to the slicer. Okay, this is what the slicer is there, which is one visual in your Power BI desktop. So how these measures are dynamic. So if I click on the furniture, all the measures will be getting filtered for that particular category only. If I select on office supplies, I will be able to see what are the total sales, what is the total quantity getting sold for that particular category, total profit that is getting generated, and the average discount for the same. So that is how the measures are the dynamic in nature. Okay, now let us start by computing the calculated columns. So how can you create a calculated columns is calculated columns are executed, they are evaluated row by row, and they are part of the table. Okay, so how can you create the one? So I can go to the table view, then I can select on this orders table. So if you click on the orders table, you will be able to see all the data that is present in that table. Now I want to create a one column called as a profit ratio. And how can you compute profit ratio is I want to divide my profit by the cells that is getting generated. Then I will be able to get the profit ratio. So how can you compute that is when you click on any table, table tools tab will be there. You can click on this option called new column, which will allow you to create a new column. Over here, the same syntax you guys have to follow. You just have to give the name of the column followed by equal to sign followed by the DAX expression. So I'm going to write over here as the profit ratio, and then I'm going to divide my profit by the cells. So just have to write the profit, which is going to show me all the columns or all the functions that is having the arrow word in it. So I'm going to select this particular column called profit. I'm going to divide it by the cells, and I'm selecting it by the tab key. And if I click on the enter key, or if you can place, if you can also click on this option as well, which will compute this particular value, profit ratio. This particular value will be evaluated for each and every row. Okay, and that's how this measures and calculated are different from each other. Calculated columns will help you to give the value for the each individual row. Okay, so this is how we have computed the profit ratio. Another thing that I can create, one calculated column I can show you is the discounted price. So let's say these are the cells, but there is certain discount applied on that cells. So what will be the discounted price after you have applied the discount on the particular value of the cells? So how can you compute that is you just have to go to the table tools, otherwise you can be there on the column tools as well. There is option called new column. You can click on that, and there it will ask you to write the name of the column. So I'm going to write the name of the column as a discounted price, and then I'm going to compute the formula for the same. So how can you compute the discount is first I will have to get the value of cells that is getting generated. So I'm going to select that particular column, then I'm going to multiply it by 1 minus whatever the value of discount is there. So I'm going to select this, and if I click on the enter, this particular calculated column will be getting generated, and it will give you the value discounted price after you have applied certain discount on the given value of the cells. So over here the discount is 0, that's why you are able to see the same value only. But if there is certain discount, let me sort it, then you will be able to see the discounted price is different, right? So this is not the actual price, this is just the discounted price. Okay, this is how you can calculate the calculated columns for each and every row of your table. So this calculated column will reside in your table only, but the measures are not present. Measures will not store any kind of the space unless and until you add it on your visual. Okay, so that's what the difference between the measures and the calculated columns. Measures will always follow the filter context. Why filter context? Because when I click on any of the category, for that specific category only I'm able to see the values getting reflected. But that is not the case for the calculated column. Calculated columns follow the row context where they will be evaluated this particular expression that I have given for each and every individual row, and that's what the difference in both of them. Okay, Now we have seen how to create the measures, how to create the calculated columns. Now let us try to understand how can you create a table. So how can you create a calculated table is, let's say I'm having this table called orders and it is having certain order ID, the date on which the order was placed. So if you try to sort this particular value in any of the order, you will be able to see certain values are getting repeated because on a given day there can be multiple orders getting placed, right? So what if there will be one table which is having only this 6th January or any of the value that is appearing multiple times in this column will be appearing only once in that table. So these type of tables you can create with the help of DAX, and for that you will have to use certain functions. And those functions are nothing but calendar and the calendar output to create a new table, date table specifically. Okay, so there are other calculated table DAX expressions as well, but we are going to focus on the function called as a calculate calendar auto and the calendar function from the DAX. Okay. So how can you create that? You have to go to the table tools. You have to click on the new table. The way we have created new measures and new columns, you can also create an entire table altogether. So I'm going to click on new table. And once I click on that, you have to follow the same syntax. That is, you have to give the name of the table equal to sign and then you have to write the expression for the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a table whose name is a calendar. So I'm going to write it as a calendar. That is the name of the table. And after that, I'm going to write the one function which is going to return me an entire table. So there is one function called calendar which is going to ask you for the two arguments. First one is a start date and the next one is the end date. So how can you get the start date and end date? So you are having the orders table with you, right? So whatever the order date column present in that orders table, whatever the minimum amount of the date is there, what is the minimum date, that will be the start date, and whatever is the maximum date, that will be your end date. Very easy, right? So I can click on that, I can select that particular value. So I can write it over here as a minimum of orders table, and in that I will have to select this particular column, and then I can also get the maximum date as a end date from the same table orders, and the column would be order date, and then I'm going to hit on the enter key, which will going to generate a new table altogether. It is because I have used the calendar function. Calendar function will always return you a table with a single column called as a date. Okay, and it has automatically find out the minimum value of the order date and the maximum value of the order date from my orders table. This is one way to create a calendar table, and the another way is to use the calendar auto function. So calendar auto function is another function which is going to generate a date table, and there is no need to pass arguments specifically to it. Whatever the values are there in the square brackets, these are nothing but optional arguments. Okay, so you don't have to specify it mandatorily. So I'm going to close the parenthesis for the same. I'm going to hit on the enter key. Then you will be able to see the calendar table is getting generated. That is, a date table is getting generated. Now what is the difference between this table and the dates that are present in this order date table? In this orders table, order date column is having the dates that are getting repeated n number of times, because on a given day there can be multiple orders getting placed. But if you see in the calendar table, the same value is appearing only once. Okay, that's what the difference in both of them. And these two tables are not connected to each other. So how can you connect these two tables is, you can create relationship between these two tables based on the date column. Okay, based on the date column, because that is the common column between them. So I can create relationship between this order date column and the date column from my calendar table. So I'm going to drag this date column from my calendar table. I'm going to drop it on the order date column of my orders table, which will show you this pop-up, which is going to create the relationship between the calendar table and the orders table. On which column? On the date column, because that is the column that I have selected. And what is the cardinality is one to many, and cross filter direction is a single. That is a dimension table, that is your calendar table. It is going to filter your fact table, which is your orders table. So that's why the cross filter direction is a single. And now I'm going to click on the save, and let me click on save. Then you will be able to see the relationship between these two tables is getting created. And what about this key measures table? Is there any need to connect or to create relationship between these? No, because this table we have specifically designed to store all the key measures so that our data model is better organized. That's why we have created the separate table to store all the measures. So for storing the measures, always the best practice would be to create a separate table and have all the measures in that. And to create a calculated column, there is no need to create a separate table because your calculated columns will always reside with the table which you have selected, right? And the calculated table will always create a new table from the existing table or the existing values that you are having in the tables. So that's it for this video. You have seen how to create the measures, calculated columns, and the calculated tables. I encourage you to try out these examples on your own datasets and experiment with the more DAX formulas. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.